the cold rain of the night, Keanu Reeves unexpectedly stopped at a desolate gas station. There, he witnessed the image of a pregnant woman working tirelessly in silence. What compelled Keanu to stay and make a decision that would change her life? This story is not only a testament to compassion but also a powerful illustration of kindness and hope. Stay tuned to discover Keanu's surprising act, something that's sure to move you deeply. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you won't miss any meaningful stories ahead. On the rain-slicked streets of Los Angeles, a chilly night with a light drizzle painted a serene yet slightly melancholic scene. The glow of the gas station lights reflected off puddles on the road, creating an atmosphere both calm and wistful. Keanu Reeves, known for his humility off-screen, stopped to refuel his motorcycle. Everything seemed ordinary until he noticed something that made him pause. A young pregnant woman, her face visibly fatigued, moving back and forth between cars, carrying heavy containers and filling gas for customers. She barely had a moment to catch her breath. Grace, 7 months pregnant, moved with determination between the pumps, wiping windshields and checking oil for hurried customers. Her thin coat and worn uniform offered little protection against the cold, but she didn't allow herself to stop. The money she earned tonight was crucial to keeping a roof over her and her child's heads. Under the small awning of the gas station, Lily, Grace's 8-year-old daughter, sat curled up on a plastic chair. Her small hands clutched a stubby red pencil as she focused intently on drawing in an old coloring book. Beside her lay 2 other pencils, one blue and one yellow, equally short and well-used. Despite these humble tools, Lily poured all her energy into carefully completing her meaningful creation. The powerful rumble of an engine broke the quiet of the night. A black motorcycle slid into the station, stopping by one of the pumps. Keanu Reeves, clad in a black leather jacket and helmet, dismounted with his usual calm demeanor. Removing his helmet revealed his slightly tousled, rain-dampened hair. Keanu quietly surveyed his surroundings. His gaze settled on Grace, who was meticulously wiping a windshield, offering a polite smile to a customer despite her obvious exhaustion. Then, his eyes shifted to Lily, who remained engrossed in her drawing, as though she were creating something of profound importance. Curious, Keanu stepped closer to Lily, bending slightly to get a better look. It was a simple yet detailed scene. A kitchen with pots and pans steaming on a stove, a table at the center, and a counter with a blank sign. Keanu studied the intricate strokes, noticing the care in every line. Lily focused on an empty space in the drawing that remained unfinished. "Do you like drawing?" Keanu asked softly. The little girl looked up, slightly startled by his presence, but she nodded shyly. "Draw places I want to go," she murmured. Keanu smiled. "So where is this place?" Lily hesitated, glancing back at her picture. She gripped the stubby red pencil tightly, as if weighing her thoughts. Before she could answer, Grace appeared, wiping her hands on an old, worn apron. "Lily, don't bother the gentleman," she said, offering a polite smile. "She's not bothering me," Keanu replied calmly. "Actually, I'm learning about her drawings and the places she dreams of visiting." Grace looked at him with a mix of curiosity and caution. Before she could say more, a car honked at the pump nearby. "Excuse me," she said quickly, turning back to her work. Keanu stood still for a moment, watching Grace as she went about her tasks. His gaze returned to Lily and her unfinished drawing. There was something in this moment, in the pencil strokes on the paper, that resonated deeply with him, something beyond words. Lily carefully added a few more details to her picture. Keanu wasn't sure why, but that simple sheet of paper seemed to hold more than just pencil marks. It carried a dream, and he was about to uncover its significance. Grace wiped the last windshield of the night, but her movements had slowed considerably. The weight of her pregnancy pressed against her back, making every step ache. She tried to mask her discomfort, but each time she bent or stretched to clean the middle of the glass, her face betrayed her exhaustion. When the final customer drove away, Grace leaned lightly against one of the pumps, trying to relieve the pressure on her back. She took a deep breath, closing her eyes to hold back the tears threatening to spill. It wasn't just the physical pain, it was the emotional burden, the relentless fatigue that piled up night after night. From a distance, Keanu observed without approaching immediately. He noticed how Grace adjusted her uniform, forcing herself to smile before heading back toward the counter. Under the awning, Lily looked up from her drawing, sensing her mother's discomfort. "Mom, are you okay?" the little girl asked softly. "I'm fine, sweetheart," Grace replied, trying to muster a reassuring smile as she sat down on the plastic chair beside her daughter. Keanu, perceiving the hesitation in Grace's response, finally stepped forward. "Excuse me," he said gently, careful not to startle her. "Do you need help? You look very tired." Grace looked up, surprised, but her instinct was to decline. "Thank you, but I'm okay. It's just a bit of back pain, normal for pregnancy." "Normal shouldn't mean constant pain," Keanu replied, his tone calm and laced with genuine concern, causing Grace to pause briefly. She shook her head, her gaze dropping to the ground. "There's no other way. It's just part of life." Keanu said nothing at first, but he couldn't help noticing how she braced her hands against her lower back each time she moved. Maintaining a respectful distance, he crouched slightly to meet her eye level. "Do you work like this every night?" Grace nodded, her eyes drifting somewhere far away, not at him, but into the void ahead. "2 nights a week here, and I clean offices during the day. That's how I pay rent and keep Lily in school." Keanu was quiet for a moment, processing the weight of her words. "So when do you rest?" he asked softly. Grace let out a laugh, but it carried no trace of joy. "Rest? I don't really have time to rest," she said, her voice subdued. "Bills don't wait, and with the baby on the way, I have to work even harder. I don't have a choice. It shouldn't have to be this way," Keanu murmured, almost to himself. For the first time, Grace looked directly at him, her eyes heavy with exhaustion. "But it is," she said simply. "At least for me. My choices led me here. I can't complain. Complaining won't change anything." Lily, who had been quietly listening the whole time, placed her small hand on her mother's. "You do everything for me, Mom," she said softly. Grace's face softened, but tears began welling up in her eyes. "Because you are everything to me, Soph. You're the reason I keep going." Keanu watched the exchange between mother and daughter, feeling a deep sense of empathy. He realized that Grace was not only bearing the physical toll of pregnancy and grueling work shifts, but also the emotional weight of ensuring a better, safer life for Lily, a task that sometimes seemed almost impossible. Sometimes Grace began, her voice catching in her throat. "I wonder if I've done enough. If one day, she'll look back and think her mom only ever struggled, never really lived. That I couldn't give her anything truly beautiful." Lily tightened her grip on her mother's hand, her small voice steady but full of conviction. "You've already given me everything, Mom." Grace smiled, but a shadow flickered in her eyes. Keanu could see she was holding back a deeper pain. "And her father?" Keanu asked gently. Grace hesitated for a moment before answering. "He left when he found out I was pregnant again." Keanu felt a tightness in his chest. He said he didn't want another responsibility. Life with one child was hard enough, so he packed his things and left. Lily looked at her mother with sadness but remained silent. Grace squeezed her daughter's hand, trying to offer her reassurance. "And you?" Keanu asked softly. "What did you do after that?" Grace took a deep breath, squaring her shoulders as if it were a practiced response. "I kept going, because I didn't have a choice." A car horn blared from pump number 2, cutting their conversation short. Grace straightened up and turned back to her work. "Sorry, I have to go. Duty calls." Keanu stood still, watching her every step. He noticed a slight limp in Grace's right leg and the strain of her pregnancy evident in every movement. His gaze returned to Lily, who had settled back into her chair. She still clutched the stubby red pencil in her hand, but her eyes followed her mother, filled with a worry far too heavy for her age. "Your mom works too much," Keanu remarked gently, lowering himself to sit at Lily's eye level. The little girl nodded, her small hands clutching the stubby red pencil tightly. She cries, sometimes when she thinks I'm asleep. Keanu felt a pang of sorrow pierce his chest. Why does your mom cry? He asked, his voice softening. Because she's tired. Lily hesitated, her voice barely audible. And because, like she says, Papa left when he found out about the baby. She pressed her pencil harder against the paper, as though channeling her emotions into the drawing. Papa said he didn't want to feed another mouth. Keanu didn't respond immediately, her words echoing in his mind. He glanced toward Grace, who was now bent over, cleaning the windshield of another car. Her movements were methodical but heavy with exhaustion. He knew he couldn't simply walk away. The world seemed to slow down. The neon lights flickered against the damp asphalt, while the drizzle added a chill to the air. Lily returned her focus to her drawing, though her eyes occasionally darted toward her mother, as if she could feel the weight Grace was carrying. Keanu stood close by, his mind racing with thoughts of what he could do. He didn't have all the answers yet, but one thing was clear: his actions tonight would make a difference. He couldn't ignore the stark contrast between Lily's innocent brightness and Grace's visible fatigue, masked by a brave face that hid both physical and emotional exhaustion. Breaking the silence, Keanu spoke, his voice calm yet purposeful. I want to ask you something, he said, addressing Grace. Grace, caught off guard, paused and nodded, signaling for him to continue. If you had one chance, just one, to do things differently, what would you do? Grace hesitated. The question seemed simple, but the answer carried profound weight. She looked down at the rain-soaked ground, thinking for a moment. I don't know. I don't think I have the luxury of thinking about that anymore. When you're paying bills and raising kids, there's no room for what-ifs. Keanu nodded, understanding her hesitation. I imagine you've had to give up a lot because of that, he said thoughtfully. Give up isn't the right phrase, Grace replied softly, searching for the right words. Life just doesn't allow for certain things. You can't dream big when you're struggling to pay rent. He paused, his gaze growing resolute. I'll be back tomorrow. Grace stared at him, unsure how to respond. Why? She asked. Because I think you deserve more than this, he replied, gesturing gently toward Lily's sketchbook and the gas station around them. I'll see you tomorrow. With that, Keanu turned and walked toward his motorcycle. Grace stood frozen, unable to find the words. She didn't know what to make of his promise to return. The drizzle intensified, making the air even colder and heavier. Grace pulled her coat tighter, a shiver running through her exhausted body. Lily, seated beside her, continued to doodle in her sketchbook, though her eyes occasionally flicked up to her mother, sensing the invisible burden she carried. Keanu lingered nearby for a moment longer, observing the silent interaction between mother and daughter. His mind was filled with thoughts about what he needed to do next. The following morning, after finishing her shift at the gas station, Grace was cleaning up behind the counter when she heard the deep, familiar hum of a motorcycle engine. She knew it wasn't a coincidence. Lily, still seated nearby with her sketchbook, paused her drawing and looked curiously in the direction of the sound. Keanu pulled up to the same pump as the night before, parking his sleek arch motorcycle. He dismounted with his characteristic calm demeanor, carrying 2 large paper bags in his hands. His expression was steady yet purposeful, like a man who knew exactly what he was about to do. Good morning, he greeted as he approached. Grace looked at him, still cautious. You really came back. I said I would, Keanu replied simply. He placed the bags on the counter and turned to Lily. Good morning, Lily. Good morning, sir. Lily responded, her voice tinged with excitement. Her wide eyes were fixed on the paper bags, curiosity brimming. Keanu turned back to Grace, noting the hesitation in her expression. Before you say anything, I just want you to take a look at these, he said. He opened the bags, revealing essential groceries, a few new outfits for Lily, and, sitting on top, a brand new box of colored pencils. Lily's jaw dropped in delight as she snatched up the box of pencils, holding it like a precious treasure. Pencils. She squealed, hugging the box tightly. "Thank you, sir." Grace watched her daughter's reaction, but her attention soon shifted to the items in the bags. She opened her mouth to say something, but Keanu gently cut her off. "I know what you're thinking," he said, "but this isn't charity. It's just a little help to make things easier for you to breathe." Grace shook her head, trying to keep her emotions in check. "I don't know if I can accept this." Keanu placed an envelope on the counter. "This is for rent, just for this month. And there's one more thing." He handed her a slightly wrinkled flyer. Grace took it, carefully reading the bold words printed on it. "Cooking course for single mothers." She blinked, confused. "What's this?" "It's a free cooking course," Keanu explained. "They teach professional techniques and even business management, in case you want to turn this into something bigger." Grace stared at the flyer, then back at Keanu, clearly struggling to process everything happening at once. "Why are you doing this? You don't even know us." Keanu gave a small smile, his gaze steady but filled with kindness. "Because you deserve it. And because sometimes one act of kindness can change everything." Grace took a deep breath, fighting back tears threatening to spill. "I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything right now," Keanu replied. "Just think about it, and know that someone believes in you." Lily, still clutching the box of pencils, looked at the flyer in her mother's hands. "Mom, does this mean you'll learn to cook new dishes like the ones Grandma used to make?" Grace glanced at her daughter, then back at the flyer. In that moment, something seemed to shift inside her. A tiny glimmer of hope, fragile but undeniable, sparked to life. She held the flyer, her eyes moving from Lily to Keanu. Though hesitation lingered, a new determination flickered in her gaze. She whispered, her voice quiet yet carrying weight. "Maybe it's time to try." Months had passed since that morning. The cooking course Grace enrolled in didn't just enhance her culinary skills. It opened doors she had never dared to dream of. With each class, she rediscovered her passion for food and, more importantly, realized the power it had to bring people together. During this time, Keanu kept his promise. Quietly, he worked behind the scenes, preparing for something bigger. While Grace dedicated herself to learning in the cooking course, Keanu reached out to partners, sought support, and secured a perfect little spot in the neighborhood. It was a simple yet cozy space, ideal for what was to come. On a particularly special morning, Grace and Lily were brought to the location, unaware of what awaited them. Keanu stood at the entrance, wearing his familiar, warm smile. "What is this?" Grace asked, her eyes scanning the front of the building. Keanu stepped aside, revealing the sign above the door. "Elegant letters spelled out. La cucina di nonna." Grace froze, her face awash with emotion. She brought her hand to her mouth, trying to hold back tears, but they quietly rolled down her cheeks anyway. Lily clung to her mother's arm, her eyes sparkling with excitement. It's your restaurant, Mom," she squealed, tugging her mother toward the door. Grace turned to Keanu, her expression overwhelmed with astonishment. You did this? Why?" Keanu smiled softly, his voice serious yet kind. "Because you deserve it. Your story and your talent are special, and the world deserves to experience them. No one should have to give up on their dreams." They walked inside together. The restaurant's interior was modest but equipped with everything Grace needed. A functional kitchen, neatly arranged tables, and small details that echoed the warmth of her grandmother's restaurant back in Italy. Lily dashed to a corner where a small children's table awaited, complete with the colored pencils Keanu had gifted her months ago. Grace gently ran her fingers over the countertops and tabletops, still unable to fully believe this was real. She turned to Keanu, struggling to find the words. "I don't know how to thank you." "You don't need to thank me," Keanu said softly. "Just do what you do best. Cook, bring people together, and pass on this kindness when you can." A few days later, the restaurant officially opened its doors, quickly becoming a beloved gathering place for the community. Grace crafted dishes infused with stories, each one inspired by her grandmother's recipes, but with her own creative flair. The food was exceptional, But what truly set the restaurant apart was the heart Grace poured into every small detail. On opening night, Lily sat at a small table, proudly handing out menus she had designed herself. Grace bustled around the kitchen, preparing her signature lasagna, while the air was filled with laughter and warm conversations. Keanu sat at a quiet corner table, quietly observing it all. When Grace brought over a plate of lasagna to his table, she sat down for a moment, her face glowing with a smile. "I never thought I'd have a day like this," she said, her voice brimming with gratitude. Keanu looked around the bustling restaurant before turning back to Grace. "But you deserve it. What you've created here is something everyone should get to experience." Grace glanced around the cozy space, realizing her dream had come back to life, more vibrant than ever. Yet, the biggest change wasn't just in her own life. The ripple effect of that single act of kindness had transformed the community as well. The aroma of freshly baked dishes filled the air, enveloping the small restaurant in a warm embrace. Grace carefully garnished each dish with the passion and dedication that had always defined her. The tables at La Cucina di Nana were packed with diners, each smile and story shared over the delicious food creating an atmosphere of connection. Lily, with her trusty box of pencils always in hand, cheerfully moved between tables, distributing menus she had illustrated. She loved telling the story of the restaurant, proudly sharing how it was inspired by her grandmother's treasured recipes. Keanu remained at his usual corner table, quietly yet unmistakably a central figure in this narrative, a silent gardener who had planted the seeds of a rekindled dream. As he observed the lively room, a hint of contentment crossed his face. He knew the change he was witnessing extended far beyond the busy restaurant. Grace approached with a cup of coffee in hand. "You always sit in the same spot," she teased. "It's the best seat in the house," Keanu replied, a small smile playing on his lips. Keanu smiled. "This is the best spot. From here I can see everything." Grace sat across from him, her eyes scanning the lively scene of the restaurant. "I could never have imagined this," she said. "Every day, I silently thank you for what you've done for me and Lily. You've changed everything." Keanu shook his head gently. "You're the one who changed everything. I just gave you a little push." Grace smiled, but her expression turned serious. "I'll never forget what you've done for us, and I'll make sure to pass on this kindness." Keanu nodded. "That's all I could ask for. Kindness is a circle. Now you have the chance to be that change for someone else." At that moment, Lily appeared at the table holding her sketchbook. "Mom, look what I drew." Grace took the book and chuckled softly. It was a drawing of the restaurant, complete with customers, steaming plates of food, and the bold sign outside that read, "La Cucina di Nana." "Perfect," Grace said, pulling Lily into a hug. Keanu stood, placing a few bills on the table. "I think it's time for me to go." Grace looked at him in surprise. "Why? You're a part of this place." Keanu smiled, his voice warm but resolute. "I'll always be a part of it. But this place is yours now. It's time for you to keep writing this story." He bent down, giving Lily a warm smile before heading toward the door. Grace remained still, her heart full as she watched him leave. As Keanu walked away, Grace realized that her life hadn't just changed, it had transformed completely. Now, she was ready to be the source of change for others. What she would do next would mark a new chapter in her story, a tale of courage, resilience, and the profound power of kindness. The message of this story is simple yet profoundly powerful. Never stop dreaming. Dreams are the flame that keeps hope alive within us, even in the darkest moments. They give us purpose, direction, and the strength to persevere. Beyond dreams, kindness is the thread that connects us, a quiet force capable of transforming lives, reminding us that no one is truly alone. Dreams and kindness can change the world, not through grand gestures made overnight, but by transforming lives one action at a time. Believe in them, nurture them, and pass them on, because that is how we build a brighter future for everyone. This story is a vivid testament to the power of kindness, resilience, and hope. Have you ever helped someone achieve their dream or transform their life? Share your story in the comments. Your experience might inspire others to do the same. If you found this story meaningful, don't hesitate to share it with your friends and loved ones to spread the message of compassion and generosity. Thank you for supporting our channel. Please like, share, and subscribe to stay updated with our latest stories. These stories are curated from various sources and do not represent any specific individual or organization. They are shared to promote the universal values of humanity and have been rewritten with the help of AI. If there are any inaccuracies, we kindly ask for your understanding. Wishing you all the best in life.